Hello, my name's Michael Lambert. Today I was going to talk about Brexit because there's so much to talk about. I mean, every day there's more news and so on, but it seems that's a story that's going to go on for the next 10, 20 years. So there'll be plenty to talk about, plenty of opportunity to talk about Brexit in the future. So instead today I thought, especially in the light of what happened last week, I thought I'd talk a bit about Boris Johnson, our Prime Minister. Now, at the moment in the polls, he's extremely popular, and people are going to flock out to vote Conservative, I'm sure, in the elections on Thursday, and they're going to romp through in Hartlepool's. And it's a bit puzzling as to why this is, and you have to wonder, if you look at all of the evidence, quite why anyone who's quite as incompetent as he is should be so popular. And of course it's largely because of the vaccination programme, the fact it's been so successful. Nothing to do with him. The fact the NHS has administered these vaccines so efficiently and so competently. And it's also to do with the fact that the lockdown looks as though it's coming to an end and people are starting to think about being able to go out and about and to go on holiday. And that kind of forgives everything. That means that all other sins can be forgotten. And of course he is and always will be popular because as a performer on television he's very entertaining. I mean, we all enjoy seeing him on television. We see him in his a different coloured high-vis jacket every day these days with his hard hats and making sort of wisecracks and bluster and so on, and he's just a funny guy. But this masks a really deep incompetence which we should all be very concerned about. And I wanted to really talk a little bit about just how bad his record is, and how it's been over the last, since he's been Prime Minister. There's a book that was published very recently. It's called Failures of State. It's by a couple of Sunday Times journalists, Jonathan Calvert and George Arbuthnot. I'll put some details down below. And they describe the pandemic right from the very start in Wuhan, right through until the beginning of this year. And they describe how at every stage Johnson has delayed and dithered. How he missed the first 5 Cobra meetings, vitally important meetings at a time of an approaching national crisis, and how at each time he delayed locking down, and how those delays caused thousands and thousands of deaths. They also highlight as well, of course, about how we left our borders open much too late, and when they were closed, they weren't really properly closed until very recently. How people were sent from hospitals to nursing homes, and that caused a huge peak in deaths. And altogether, the leadership on the part of Johnson has been really, really as bad as imaginable. We've had 127,000 deaths through COVID. And that is the 5th highest total in the entire world. I mean, the only countries ahead of us are India, America, Mexico and Brazil. Vastly bigger countries than us. So his handling of COVID has really been dreadful. But of course that's all completely forgotten and forgiven because the vaccination was very successful and it looks as though it's all coming to an end. We have had the worst economic slump amongst the G7 countries. That must be down to the government to a certain extent, probably mostly due to Brexit. Then there's a question of PPE contracts. Never before has there been, at the head of government, so much evidence of dodgy deals involving mostly Tory supporters. It's not something we've been used to in this country. It's the sort of thing you expect in banana republics. But here it's all been going on under Johnson's watch. It's all forgiven because of the vaccination being successful. Then there's the test and trace. Well, £37 billion. You'll have seen that we launched an aircraft carrier a few months ago that's now sailed off to I don't know wherever it is, showing the world how strong we are. It's an aircraft carrier I think the Chinese call a sitting target. Anyway, this cost £3.1 billion, which is a staggering amount of money. It's got between 600 and 1,000 crew, a huge, huge ship, incredibly complicated, sophisticated, with all the most modern equipment and design and so on. Well, for the cost of test and trace, we could buy 12 of those aircraft carriers. I mean, this is an almost unbelievable amount of money. £37 billion on test and trace. And nobody seems to have any idea what's happening. Nobody seems to know anybody who's been tested or traced. How can you spend that sort of money on a test and trace? In February, the test and trace under this wife of a Tory MP, Dido Harding, they were employing 2,500 consultants at a rate of £1,100 per day on average. That is £2,750,000 of your money and my money on consultants. Doing what? Well, you test and trace. You find somebody, you test them, and then you trace whoever the contacts are. Why do you need thousands of consultants to do that? The answer is, of course, that the consultants can be blamed if anything goes wrong. That's what consultants are for. But who are these consultants anyway? Why are they so expert? Where do you get 2,500 experts on testing and tracing? And as I say, there's been really very, very little, it's made very little difference. Germany spent less than £1 billion and they've got a much bigger population than we have. And there's so many other things, aren't there? There's the way that Boris Johnson supported Priti Patel when she was found guilty of bullying by an independent committee. He supported Cummings when he went off up to the north of England and started driving around to test his eyesight, see if he was safe to drive. Neither of them got the sack. He assured the people of Northern Ireland there would never be a border down the Irish Sea, and that if anybody ever got any documents or was asked to complete documents for goods moving from the UK to Northern Ireland, they should just contact him and he would tell them to rip them up. There's a border down the Irish Sea now, isn't there? He's a man who lies. He lies all the time. He lied with the referendum campaign, with the bus for the £350 million a week on the side of it. He lied about Turkey joining being poised to join the EU with 90 million Turks who were all going to be able to come to the UK if they wanted to. He's a guy with a dodgy private life, isn't he? Look at this Jennifer Arcuri when he was London Mayor, getting £126,000 grant, going off on foreign trips with him. And then there are the latest two stories, one of which is, I think, potentially very, very serious. But concerning the decorations of 10 Downing Street, Boris Johnson's been asked time and time and time again who provided the money to pay the first bill. And he won't say. Starmer asked him several times in Prime Minister's Question Time last week. He wouldn't say. So instead, the Electoral Commission and separately the head of the Civil Service are conducting investigations as to find out where the money came from. And Johnson has asked the head of the Civil Service to investigate. So you have the absurd situation where the Prime Minister is asking the head of the Civil Service to find out who paid him the money that he received in order to pay for his decoration. All he says, of course, and all these ministers who are wheeled out every week to defend him say is that, well, they say two things. They say, first of all, they say the public are not interested in this story. They're more interested in da-da-da-da-da, whatever. When in fact the public are very interested in this story. But the other thing he keeps saying is that I paid, it came out of my pocket. Well, the question is really this: where did the money come from to get into his pocket for him to pay? Now, the seriousness of this, of course, is that if someone lends money or gives money to a Prime Minister or any senior politician, they put that politician or that Prime Minister in a position where they are in debt, not only for the money, but they're morally in debt. They owe a favour. And so what favours were granted or might be granted in return for the money that was lent to Boris Johnson initially to pay for his redecoration? But the other matter, which I think is really, really serious, and I think under normal circumstances would bring down a Prime Minister, but in the case of Johnson, you never know, because he's such a Houdini. It's this, that ministers never lie in Parliament. It's just one of those things that you do not do, and it is in direct contravention of the ministerial code, which says that if a minister lies to Parliament, or I think they call it deliberately misleads Parliament, then they are expected to resign. Now, Johnson's doing it all the time. There's a guy on Twitter who you've probably heard of, called Peter Stefanovic, who calls out these lies. He'll show a clip every week or two, show a clip of Johnson saying something in Parliament, and he'll then point out that it is a lie. Does it all the time. But the sort of lies he's been engaged in until now have been things like sort of saying we've spent so much money on this, we've done this, we've done that, and the economy's improved by so much percent, making up figures. And all those are lies. Although those are lies, they're not lies where you can really pin him down. But last week something happened which was quite different, and it is this: it was during a Prime Minister's question. Now, it had been said that Johnson had been heard saying he would rather that bodies were piled high than introduce another lockdown. This was last October. Now, several people were supposed to have heard him say this. People who have, in fact, said that they're prepared to go on the record saying it. In fact, I think, according to the leader of the SDP, there are those who would actually swear on oath that they heard him saying these words. And so when Starmer got up for his first question last week, he said the question was that from several sources, it had been printed in the newspapers, it had been on ITV and on the BBC, they'd all reported that several sources had heard him say that he would rather bodies were piling up than having another lockdown. He then said, would the Prime Minister confirm, did he say that? Or words to that effect? Now, all Johnson had to do was to get up and say, yes, Mr. Speaker, I did use those words. It was a very difficult moment. I was under a lot of pressure. I was very busy. I wasn't thinking what I was saying. I deeply apologise. I profoundly apologise for using those words. Of course, I never ever meant to insult people who might die or might have died through COVID. And that would probably have been the end of it. But he didn't. He jumped up and he said, no, Mr. Speaker, I did not say that. Well, assuming that all these people who claim to have heard him say it, who are prepared to go on record, even swear on oath that they heard him say it, and all the newspapers and the journalists who have been told and will have obviously investigated and checked their sources and so on, unless they're all mistaken, Boris Johnson deliberately lied to Parliament. And that is really, really, really serious. Now, Starmer then got up and said, I'm going to leave that there for now. Implying, of course, that he's going to come back to it. Now, Starmer's a very clever guy. He's a lawyer. He's an extremely experienced top lawyer. He would never have asked the question if he hadn't known for certain he'd got the answer, and that he'd got someone who was going to come forward and with the evidence. And saying that he was going to leave it for now was letting Johnson know that he's going to come back with the evidence. And when he presents that evidence to Parliament, there's a big question then. Can Boris Johnson remain in office, given that it is contravention of the ministerial code to lie to Parliament? Now, I think Boris Johnson knew the moment he sat down that he made a mistake. He walked into a trap. And towards the end, the normal procedure is Keir Starmer has 5 questions. The 5th question, normally Johnson gets up. He never answers any of the questions, but he'd get up after the 5th question and then he'll just give a party political rant about something or other. But this time he really lost his cool. He appeared to lose his temper after the 5th question. He was really shouting and raving, and you could tell he was disturbed by it. I think he knew that he'd gone too far. I think he knew that he was cornered. And so it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. But we won't know until the next Prime Minister's questions, which is going to be in a couple of weeks' time when Parliament reassembles. In the meantime, we've got the Hartlepool by-election. We've got all of these other local elections. No doubt people are going to roll out in their droves to vote for the Conservatives. In fact, they're voting for Boris because the Conservatives without Boris are nothing. And so let's see what happens. But you do sometimes wonder, if people are prepared to support somebody who is so flawed, who's so incompetent, who makes so many mistakes, such costly mistakes, you wonder if they don't really deserve it. There was a French philosopher who said every nation gets the government it deserves, and you sometimes wonder how people can possibly go out and vote for such failure. But he's funny on the telly, isn't he? Anyway, in the meantime, let's see what happens, and let's hope that if things do go wrong for Johnson, let's hope that Mrs. Sunak lights the new decoration in number 11 Downing Street. So I'll leave it there, and if you've watched this far, thank you for watching, and until next time, bye-bye.